Coming over here, making sure we are on the Yahoo Strategy Show, and we're live. So this is it. It's the Saturday DFS Strategy Show. It is your old pal Emac, joined by one Adam, Ship My Money Share, and we, of course, are sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy. We will got some new graphics here. I just haven't put them all together. It's like the night before Christmas, Adam, and if you have kids and you're trying to build all the toys so you can get it done, you probably shouldn't wait till 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night to do that, or you're going to be pulling an all-nighter. So I received the parts and pieces about an hour before we went live. So I said, you know what? Let's just go with the old one. Let's do everything else, and then we'll get set. But I'm going to get this tweet out, and we'll get going here, Adam. What were your thoughts on the Karl Anthony Towns birthday celebration? The Wizards gave him, particularly Moritz Wagner, a very happy birthday.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was still a fine game, but pretty disappointing. Yeah, I mean, he had a. I thought you were going to get a huge game out of him after that second quarter when Mo Wagner did everything he could to piss Towns off as much as possible. Towns, I think, had 23 points in that quarter, but then just disappeared.
Yeah, it was surprising how that one all played out. So we've got that there. He's on a back-to-back tonight. Towns is taking on the Rockets. So the operating effort of the day is going to be seeing how we can get James Harden into our lives, ideally with Towns. We have a few injuries from last night. Do we have any updates on Brogdon or any of the other guys while I finish a little housekeeping here?
Last I saw on Brogdon was that his status for today was uncertain. That he had back spasms, was in a lot of pain. I'm assuming he doesn't go, but that's just me guessing.
All right, that makes sense.
I pulled up lineup rewind from yesterday, and if you sort on DraftKings by the value column, so you can see, what the best, who produced the best value, out of the top like 20 guys, 4 were more than 5% on.
Really?
And like a lot were 0 and 1%.
What are some of the ones that popped out? I mean,
So
were
like
there
the top 10 from highest to lowest were Mo Wagner, Aminu, Langston Galloway, Cody Martin, Terrence Ferguson, Bradley Beal, Evan Fournier, TJ Leaf, Jordan McRae, Jakob Poeltl, and then you get to Draymond. Chris Paul was 4%, John Morant was 2%, Covington, and then you get to like KCP, Ben McLemore. It was a really weird slate.
What did KCP end up doing? I just said I don't want any part of him.
22.75.
Okay.
So but he was 3,300.
Yeah, that good point there. Good one there. Hunter M says hit that thumbs up. He wants upvotes for Adam. Hey, there you go. I'll go along for the ride there. I just hit the thumbs up. Congrats, Adam. That one's for you. The Turd Ferguson appearance. Some of these guys were guys I just wouldn't even dream of. We were talking about Wagner there. I had him on one turbo lineup. That was it. Out of the 100, well, counting my turbos, I played almost like 200 lineups. He was on one of them.
Yeah, he was in foul trouble in the second quarter too. I think he picked up like 4. So it was really surprising that he ended up being able to do what he did.
Yeah, that was a bit of a mess. Let me see here. I've got the Fantasy Cruncher article, tip of the day, the what are we going to call this? The cash building blocks article. In that one, down at the bottom, you'll get the, I'll drop this link into chat. At the bottom section, you got the instructions and promo code of how to get in there on Yahoo Fantasy, or you will as soon as I add that to the article. So let me do that right now. I'm compiling a bunch of different articles together, and they don't always have the same format, but we've put that Yahoo section down at the bottom of each of the articles. Overarching final thoughts from yesterday, Adam. It was stars and scrubs. Interesting to see that the scrubs that did well were not the scrubs most of us would have expected. Were there any shocking moves? Anything you'd like to do differently as you chalk this one up to the books here?
I would like to not roster a combined 60% of point guards that get hurt.
That would be one way of doing things, I suppose. Let me see. What else? Any other fun little nuggets?
No, I think it was a pretty straightforward slate. I mean, You had all the Minnesota value. Even though none of them like went crazy, they were still some of the best plays on the slate. Um, yeah, it was just a slate where obviously if you happen to land on, for whatever reason, a really random cheap guy that scored 30 points for absolutely no reason, it helped a lot. But yeah, it wasn't a slate where like I felt like I made a lot of mistakes or that there's anything that I really messed up on. It just didn't go. When you're playing top heavy tournaments, you're gonna have a lot of slates that you play perfectly fine and then you lose money.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the good takeaways that a lot of people sometimes lose sight of is you need to look at the long have to have a long-term view of this. You're not made or defined by one particular slate. You got to learn from it. If you have a crappy one and you continue to have crappy ones because you're not using, and I hate saying using the right process, but if you're not following certain steps, playing within yourself, understanding certain research, if you're just doing a shotgun approach, you're going to be you're going to be a flash in the pan. So, and we've seen countless guys come and go that have caught lightning in a bottle. Ryazan, that's one of the guys that has been out there. I mean, dropped a few 6-figure wins, went pro, and then proceeded to lose all of his bankroll rather quickly because he just got lucky. He didn't know what he was doing. So those are cautionary tales are everywhere. What we're trying to do here, particularly with the DFS strategy show, is get you guys squared away so you can survive, so you can live to play another day. It's all about having the cash in play, not having to redeposit, and you have the opportunity to win. You're not always going to win, but let's not have to redeposit all the time. There's nothing more frustrating than that. All right, now I'm dropping the link to the NBA DFS cash building blocks article. At the bottom does have the information and instructions on how to sign up for Yahoo to get your initial deposit bonus of $30. Those are matched in YSRP's Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Those are available for immediate use into any contest. Excuse me. Choking up. I'm so emotional. I played every Friday. They have their they have a Yahoo free roll contest, and it captures it throughout the entire season and drops like your 4 or 5 lowest scores. And you can win, the winner of all of it gets like $10,000, but you can win each week. So each week I like to play that. And if I'm playing that, I put in a lineup and then I put that lineup into a couple other contests. Now for baseball, it's a little more leisurely pace. You have time to get into everything. NBA, I don't always because I'm also playing NHL at the same time. But I went in and built my lineup for that contest, dropped it into 2 others. I had a 3% lineup, Adam. Jeez. Why couldn't I have been playing over there more? It was a Washington Wizards Minnesota game stack. I did not have Jeff Teague. I did have Isaiah Thomas. They more or less scored about the same over there. And then I had Tatum and Bogdanovich as my 2 players that weren't from that Wizards game. And it turned out quite well. And I just put those in a couple leagues. And the leagues have better payouts than the tournaments. So I ended up... I think winning $14 on my $2 of entries. So it worked out nicely. But there we are. So just saying, you never know when you're going to get lucky or when you are not, because DraftKings ended up losing a little bit there on NBA. But shout out to the amazing Awesemo NHL projections, which yet again carried me to an overall evening of green. All right. We have one rando early game here. It's Brooklyn at Chicago. We've got single game projections for that. We've got us in the Slack chat, but not a whole lot to really poke at with that game. Chicago, if you just want to mention, I know the rotations changed a little bit there for Lauri Markkanen. We're seeing Kobe White regression. His shots actually going in the bucket instead of going near the bucket, but not inside the bucket. Some interesting guys there. And then Brooklyn, I think Kyrie Irving will probably play. He's been dealing with a sore shoulder. But give those that are going to be playing that single game slate a little insight to that Bulls front court rotation.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at Popcorn Machine from the last game, it looks similar to the rotation we were seeing before. Still no Luke Cornett. Lauri Markkanen played 32 minutes. Lost a couple minutes, I think, to fouls, but it seems like he should still play 32 to 34. It's just a matter of when is he going to get going in this offense. Zach LaVine talked about him a bit after the last game, said you can tell Markkanen is upset with how he's playing, but that he's handling it well, and that he thinks it's just a matter of adjusting to the new offense and figuring it out. So, I still think you get Markkanen being good sooner rather than later, but it's definitely been frustrating the roster. And the minutes are nice, though. The rotation's nice. Kobe White, once again, showed that at least if he's shooting well, the upside's there for him to stay on the floor. He played 35 minutes. Chandler Hutchison only played 21. You had White close the game over Hutchison. I think that on games where he's not making shots, you run the risk of him playing like 24, 25 minutes. But obviously, if he's making his shots, they'll leave him in, which is good to see.
All right. And then before we dive in, we've got a super chat here. This is the YouTube feature where you can throw a little coin onto your question, and it pops up. We see it all highlighted. So we'll call that out and answer it. But this is from Kirk Lanahan. Ooh, any relation to John Lanahan, the opening day starter for many years for the Washington Nationals? I don't know. But Kirk asks...
Lannan?
Oh, it was Lannan. Wow. I couldn't remember for sure. Adam, he should have never been an opening day starter, but he started like 4 or 5 of them.
I mean, that was back when the Nationals shouldn't have been a Major League Baseball team. So,
fair point. Kirk says, when running 150 lineups, how many different players per lineup do you recommend? So I'm going to give a quick answer, and then Adam's a global one for everybody, and then Adam can mention kind of what he does or what he looks for. So generally, we have different settings in whatever optimizer you're using. If we look at Fantasy Cruncher, you have something called randomness. What this does is it takes your whatever projection you put in, and then it randomly chooses something within the range that you've recommended. If you have basic recommended or the basic function, and you say 10%, it's going to do plus or minus 10%, any number in between that minimum and maximum of your median projection. If you have the FC Pro, and you say 10%, it's going to force it more into a bell curve, so it will be a more likely outcome, meaning it utilizes more standard deviation and keep things in the middle, but still has outliers, but just not as extreme outliers for all of them. It does this for each different lineup it crunches. The other thing you have is something called uniques, and this is something most of the optimizers have as well. They call it by different names, but you can say how many different players do you want per lineup. And what that does is it just, so if you pick 2 or if you pick 3, you can go differently with what it does is it takes 2 or 3 different from whatever the previous lineup it just built was. So what that does is it helps disperse your player pool rather than clumping everybody together and saying, okay, here was the best combinations using these players. Now I'm moving on to these other players. Now I'm moving on to these other players based upon your overall exposure cap. Now, Adam, do you ever particularly have a number that you focus on for number of different guys per lineup? Or I know you choose talk about the popularity of the players that you try to mix in with your lineups.
Yeah, so I think that if I were, I ideally would have 2 to 3 different players per lineup. The way that I personally approach it is that I use a bunch of randomness, and I have pretty tight exposure caps on my players individually when I make my lineups in Fantasy Cruncher. So what that does is it naturally mixes up my lineups. So I only set it on one unique, because if I were to put it on more than that, I would start to get some just really off-the-wall lineups that don't have a good combination of high probability players and low owned guys, just because of the constraints that I put on. So I naturally just end up with different enough lineups anywhere where I run it with one unique. But if I were not using all of the settings that I put in place, on my own, I would try and get 2 to 3 different players per lineup ideally.
Right, and that's and thank you. That's another thing. All these things can work in concert and have a multiplier effect on each other. So one of the other things you kind of want to look at is just keep an eye on the number of players that end up in your player pool. Now, it changes by slate, what value is available, what sport you're doing, etc. There's no real set number, but you can look and see if you have, oh my God, I've got 100 players in my player pool. I really only want 50. But then if you go and look and you see you got 20 of them or 25 of them that are basically in one lineup, that's really not a big player pool. If you look at it that way, you're just getting a bunch of very isolated one-off plays. So all of this stuff working together can have different results, and that's why when you're doing this, you run a lot of, and we just call them crunches because most of us here use Fantasy Cruncher since they're our partner, and it is the best optimizer in my opinion out there. I've been using it for almost 4 years now, and I have tried a bunch of the others, but it's something where you want to we want to try a bunch of different ones. Now, for NBA, I probably run 15 or 20 crunches before I actually put in my final lineup. For MLB, it's probably about the same. For NFL, it's probably double that, but I have more time and I'm trying different things. But the point being is you want to see, hey, I've now adjusted this input, what's going to happen? I've now adjusted this, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, unintended consequence there. How do I fix that? It's like the whack-a-mole. So you just want to be careful. It's not uploading the projections, setting your parameters and hitting the button once. It's not how it works, unless you're Papa Gates and Chipotle. But they have the sports almanac from Back to the Future. All right, Adam, let's get on in here. We have a nice collection of people in there. Hey, hit that thumbs up if you guys want to give Adam a vote, the old Fonzie, if you will, because that is a vote that is for not Josh Engelman. So there you are. Show your support. Okay, first game of the day, Milwaukee, Indiana. We've got a couple items of a couple news and notes items here. Chris Middleton out. We have Miles Turner potentially returning today from an ankle injury. I believe he's missed, forget now if it's 8 or 9 games, but it has been a while. We have a very sore Malcolm Brogdon who left last night's game, as Adam mentioned. Good chance he is going to be out as well. No Jeremy Lamb, and of course we have not seen Victor Oladipo yet this season. I'm seeing Aaron Holiday pop up a bunch on some different sites with regards to value plays, popularity, etc. My one word of caution for him, and then I'm going to turn this over to Adam. He has started the last 5 games. He's playing around 28 minutes, so I don't see a ton of that changing per se tonight. Maybe he gets a little over 30. In those games, though, he's only topped 25 fantasy points twice. Once was 26 and once was 31. So the worry I have is what is his potential upside? I think he's a fine play, a little spendy at 4,900 on DraftKings, but he's okay on Yahoo and he's really nice on FanDuel. But you are giving up a point guard spot. Adam, start us off here with the Pacers and take it away.
So the really big news, obviously, is Brogdon. Miles Turner I don't think expected is the right word, but likely to play. He had said. Shams reported that he's hopeful to return today against the Bucks. So I think it seems more likely than not that he comes back, which would slide Sabonis back to the 4, makes Sabonis a bit less productive. Still a decent play, but he's definitely priced for Turner to be out. But Brogdon's the piece that really, really matters on this slate because, as we'll get to throughout the other games, there are several stars that are in better than usual spots that we would like to pay up for. So finding value obviously will be important. If Brogdon's out, you get a clear top value on the slate in TJ McConnell, who is the backup point guard, but he's a competent fantasy producer. It's not like one of these guys that just stands around and does nothing. He'll actually have the ball in his hands. He'll pick up a bunch of assists. He'll provide stats for you. So he would end up being one of the top values on the slate. And if Brogdon's out, it also makes Holiday better because, as you mentioned, Holiday playing with the starters, he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much. He's not as involved in the offense. But if Brogdon's out, you're going to see him and TJ McConnell stagger their minutes, most likely, and that would involve Holiday running the second unit. I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. So it would give him some more valuable minutes as well. McConnell would still be the preferred option, especially because he's so much cheaper, but it would make Holiday a much better play than he will be if Brogdon's in.
All right. Do you think, now we've seen Domantas Sabonis' price really increase with his role, his additional usage, scoring, rebounding, etc. with Turner out. Do you think he'll be greatly impacted by the return of Turner? We've seen them start to coexist actually pretty well prior to Turner's injury this season, both in the starting lineup as compared to prior years where they did not see the court together all that often.
It should hurt Sabonis' production just because he's playing, not playing center. He gets a huge bump when he's not playing with Turner in terms of assists and rebounds. So he's still going to be a productive player, but he'll be a little bit overpriced until his salary comes back down.
All right. Any of the wings interest you here, assuming Brogdon is out? Does that elevate anybody, or are these guys just a lot of when it comes down to our options?
If Brogdon's out?
Yeah, if Brogdon's out.
Yeah, so it would elevate McConnell and Holiday. You would see,
but trickling down to the wing guys, the forwards.
Yeah, it would probably lead to more assist opportunities for Sabonis. But if Turner's back and Brogdon's out, I think it probably comes out in the wash, and Sabonis still ends up a little bit more expensive than I'd like.
All right. Looking at Milwaukee now, one of the guys that, of course, can keep pace with James Harden is the one and only reigning MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is essentially playing. I was chuckling when I saw this on the Early Bird podcast last night, but playing 36 minutes darn near every game. That will change a little bit. What we've seen him bounce lower than that when the game is in hand. He is not someone that they run out for a boatload of minutes when they don't have to, because he literally does everything for them. But no Chris Middleton does mean at least some of the workload is and scoring responsibilities are going to fall even further on his shoulders in the early going for the game. I really like this particular matchup, but for me, it's going to be tough to get to Giannis over Towns or Harden. But that means that's what the average person is probably feeling as well. So once we get some more finalized ownership here, that could tweak things a little bit. Start off with our 2018-2019 MVP.
Obviously, a great play whenever he plays, and Middleton being out does give him a little bit more, a little bit higher per minute projection, a little bit more usage, a little bit more of the peripheral stats as well. The problem is just that you do have Towns and you do have Harden, and it's a slow Indiana team that Giannis is going up against. It's a quality defensive team. Not that you expect him to have a bad game, but Towns and Harden in that Houston Minnesota game that should be a track meet are going to just have more possessions than the Bucks have, and possibly play more minutes than Giannis too. But you mentioned the ownership, and right now, looking at our early ownership projections on DraftKings, where you have Harden at 29%, which that'll go up, and if he were 29%, it would be way too low. But even just looking at that, you have him at 29, you have Giannis at 5. When you start to get that kind of an ownership difference, even though Giannis or Harden is going to be the highest projected player on the slate, Giannis still has that same ceiling that Harden does. Like, Harden can get 2 fantasy points per minute today, but so can Giannis. And so if that's the ownership difference, then it starts to become appealing. So I think that Harden and Towns are the better plays. But if nobody's gonna go to Giannis, then he's a great pivot off of him.
All right. Looking at the guards there, they are going to. So depending on how things square up, we could see with Middleton out, we could see the Bucks go smaller. Giannis get a little bit more at the 4, which gives us some more intriguing opportunity here for George Hill, as well as for Eric Bledsoe. Now, Eric Bledsoe's price has come up because he is a good player with the occasional lapse in the ability to put the biscuit in the basket from outside of 5 feet, but he is a fine play. Hill is intriguing as well. Before somebody shouts out revenge, this is, I think I counted it last night, his 4th team, or is it his 5th team since he played in Indiana? So he's bounced around quite a bit. Let's just say he's familiar with the shooting backdrop there, but he is really cheap. And he's got a lot of empty box scores, but this does feel like a game where he can be one of our discount dandy options with regards to the backcourt for the Bucks. Anybody standing out for you?
Yeah, I think Bledsoe is interesting. His rates this year have been really good. He has like a 24.5% usage rate. His assist percentage is in the mid-30s. The problem has been that a lot of games you're seeing less than 30 minutes because of a combination so far this season of blowouts, foul trouble, and then George Hill also just being a decent backup who steals some minutes. But with Middleton being out, you have the potential for Bledsoe and Hill to play more minutes alongside each other, which is what you saw against Chicago, where Hill played 29 minutes, Bledsoe played 31 and a half. If you're going to get around 32 minutes from Bledsoe, that starts to become really appealing, especially because he did see a sizable bump last year when he played without Middleton. If you take Brogdon and Middleton off the floor and you put Giannis and Bledsoe on, Bledsoe averaged 1.22 fantasy points per minute. If you add Middleton to the floor, he was right around a fantasy point per minute, a little bit less. So he certainly saw an increase in production. We saw a good game out of him against Chicago in the first game without Middleton. So I think he gets a boost in a couple of ways, one being the production and 2 being the path to more minutes because of the ability to play George Hill alongside him.
All right. And then the dregs there, the Vincent. Shall we just call him Vinny? You've got him. You've got Ursan Ilyasova. You've got Connaughton. Some other scrubby guys. Anybody there going to come into the churn of players for you, or will they just come out in the wash?
Yeah, I don't expect to really get to those guys because it's not going to be a fast-paced game because they're not going to get usage with Bledsoe and Giannis on the floor. Hill is the one that I'm most interested in just because, we saw those 29 minutes against the Bulls, and this Indiana team is another team that they can run that small backcourt against. If Brogdon's out and you're getting lineups of Aaron Holiday and TJ McConnell alongside each other, there's no reason that the Bucks can't go with Bledsoe Hill and then slide Matthews to the 3 and slide everyone down a position. So, or not slide the front court down. Like you can go Bledsoe Hill, Matthews, Giannis, Lopez, or you can go Bledsoe Hill, Matthews, Connaughton, Giannis at the 5 against the smaller, against like TJ Leaf lineups or something. So there's a couple of different ways that it can go where Hill picks up more minutes. Not that they'll necessarily be the most productive minutes, but I think that he's a more productive per minute player than DiVincenzo or Connaughton or Sterling Brown or any of those guys. And I think that he has a nice path to minutes.
Yeah, and that's a good call out there. I see someone mentioning in chat, love it when EMAC misses the Fred Van Elite contest. No, I actually have it. So what I've done, and if you guys follow my tweets, I've tweeted one of the last 3. We're able to fill these up because we have people joining the DraftKings Osmo League, and that's where I'm posting these. So you get the alert set there, and then you can join. So it's already 40 people in it. It's 75 people, just $1. Top 15 paid out per normal DraftKings, but payout structure. But if you win, you have an Osmo avatar and send me a message, you will get 30 free days of Osmo premium content. We've given out 5 of winners there. We've run, this is contest 12. We've run 10 of them because one did not fill. So the contest must fill for it to run. But I have not had to chase people to join these out there on Twitter. So if you come on in and check out my pinned tweet, I just dropped that in the chat. That has the link to join the Osmo DraftKings League. And then from there, you can gain access to all of the Fred Van Elite contests. I'm the only one that has to play him, but a lot of you are going to be joining me until the Raptors get some of their players back. Let's move on to our next game, Adam. We have Charlotte at New York. We've got the Knicks favored at home by a 3-pointer. We've got a 211 over under here. And really nothing overly exciting. There's a lot of forwards there for New York. We have Mitch Robinson having himself a moment here and there, which means foul trouble is on the horizon, and then somehow Kevin Knox is randomly going to get 29 minutes because that's just what happens. There was an interesting article in ESPN breaking down various news releases and official press releases from the Knicks from when they beginning of last year when they were trying to clear the decks for salary cap, how they were going to get all the people, and then what they thought they were going to get when they won, or if they were able to win the lottery, and then what actually happened. It was a funny read, and it was not even using their own words against them, but it was pretty hilarious. We're seeing their dysfunction. There's already rumors that they're trying to clear the path for Fizdale to get to be the fall guy already. What, Adam?
I said, please God, let that happen.
Yes, which wouldn't be a bad one, but they link to some of the things they said about him when they brought him in, etc. So it was a very intriguing article there, but you can check that out. But Dennis Smith Jr., I'm interested in. He had missed quite a few games, had a close family member pass away, and he was attending to those matters, but he's been back for a couple. It sounds like Frankie Ntilikina is dealing with an adductor injury, so sore groin. So I don't know what his status is going to be yet. We know that RJ Barrett, a little bit dinged up as well. Good God, why are they still starting Taj Gibson? I don't know. What are they trying to boost his trade value? Hint, hint. He doesn't have any. He might not even be a buyout candidate if you were to release him. What do you want to do here with the LOL Knicks?
I want to hear you talk more for sure.
Because I'm losing my voice now?
Yeah. But yeah, Ntilikina listed as probable for today's game. Looking at the last game, be really careful. Make sure you go through popcorn machine, closely, and don't just take the minutes from that game. Dennis Smith Jr. played 30 minutes. Frank Ntilikina was in massive foul trouble. Picked up 2 fouls in the first, picked up a third pretty quickly into the second, which gave Dennis Smith Jr. an extra almost 6 minutes. Picked up his fourth and fifth 3 minutes into the third, which gave Dennis Smith Jr. an extra lot of minutes. Ntilikina still closed that game. So I think that I don't really think there's a change in Dennis Smith's role. I think that the one positive that we can take away is that he did play 30 minutes. Fizdale had said that he thought he was going to need to ease him back into the rotation, and then immediately he played 30 minutes. So at least we know that that's in the range of outcomes. That's something that he can do. But on DraftKings, his salary also went from $3,500 to, or $3,300, whatever it was, to $5,000. And $5,000 would be okay if we were projecting him for 30 minutes, but there's really no way that you can actually do that because it's not like he was running alongside Ntilikina or taking minutes from him. Ntilikina's the better NBA player. He's probably the better prospect for the Knicks. So I would expect them to be looking to give him more minutes. Fizdale had said that when Smith and Payton came back, it was going to be Ntilikina's show unless he, showed that he didn't deserve it. So I still think Ntilikina's the guy. I still think Smith's just the backup point guard. And then kind of the same thing with Mitchell Robinson, who he played 22 minutes, but he picked up an extra 5 minutes in the second quarter because Taj Gibson was in foul trouble. Then he got into some foul trouble of his own. I think that you probably get around 22, 24 minutes from him. It's a really nice matchup against a weak Charlotte front court. He's someone that if he's not going to get much ownership, he'd be a nice, tournament pivot. Right now we have him at about 12% ownership. At 4,500, he's the kind of value guy that has a high ceiling at least that, can help you get in the Hardens and Giannis's and Towns. Obviously, DraftKings only for Towns because they're the same position on FanDuel. But he's someone where I don't mind getting him in tournaments, but he's not like a core play.
Yeah, I think that's just the God. The Knicks just have me all choked up, Adam. I don't know what's going.
I can just keep going on the Knicks.
Yeah. The Charlotte side of the game here.
Hang on. Julius Randle, I think, is the best play from the Knicks. He's 6,400 on DraftKings. Really good matchup against Charlotte. He leads the team in usage rate. He's a leader in assist percentage. He is up there in rebound percentage as well. And he's playing 34 to 36 minutes a night. His salary is falling just because we haven't really seen monster games from him. But the opportunities are there. The minutes are there. He's one of the only guys in the Knicks rotation that actually has, steady minutes. So I think that he's the best play from the Knicks. I think RJ Barrett is fine also. His minutes have been down a bit lately from where they were early in the season, but still should get 34 to 36 in competitive games.
All right. Chat's telling me to get water. I've got water. I've got soda. I'm having an allergy thing. I don't know. We have some flowers in the house now, and my eyes are all itchy. So I'm wondering if now that the sun's over there, they're opening up, and little pollen granules have made their way over to my office. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on to the Charlotte side of things, grab a beer. That's what the premium chat says. Sadly, I don't have a beer nearby. It is 5:00 somewhere, so we shall see. I know I have some Dos Equis Amber in the fridge. So we're gonna make some nachos at some point this weekend. So I've got some of that, but that's downstairs and not in easy reach. Looking at the Charlotte side here. You discussed this and broke it down nicely on the Early Bird podcast with Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham now both drawing the starts and getting a lot of time alongside each other, how it's going to impact them, who gets the ball more or less. They're both adequate off the ball. You mentioned that Rozier is actually more comfortable playing off the ball, but this is going to kind of cut down on some of the assist opportunities unless they get staggered more. So we might not see let me say it this way, it'll be a little tougher to divine who might be the better play on a night-to-night basis now that unless we start seeing some staggered minutes, since a lot of these are going to be alongside each other. Does this dissuade you at all from going with these guys against the Knicks?
No, and we are seeing staggered minutes, so you're still getting a share of minutes where Rozier is the point guard. It's just a little bit less than it was when Graham was coming off the bench. And, as you said, Rozier is more comfortable playing off ball. He said he did it in high school. He did it in college. He wasn't drafted as a point guard. So he's perfectly fine and comfortable having the ball in Graham's hands. But from a DFS standpoint, it makes Rozier a little bit less appealing because when he's played alongside Graham this year, he has a 16.5% assist percentage compared to up around 30% when Graham's not on the floor. So it knocks his projection down a little bit, but you still should expect 34 to 36 minutes from Rozier, probably around a point per minute on average. So I think Graham will be the better per minute player. And right now you have them at very comparable price points. So I give the edge to Graham. But what will probably happen is that Rozier's salary will hold or drop a little bit while Graham's continues to rise. And that's when you can start to kind of view them as two different players where, Rozier isn't quite as good on a per minute basis, but he's cheaper. So right now, I think Graham gets the edge. It's not a massive edge. Like if projected ownership were way higher on one than the other, you should just play the other in tournaments. But I would give the slight edge to Devontae Graham as long as they're priced similarly.
All right, and then front court, sort of a jumble here. You've got inconsistent Miles Bridges. PJ Washington's price coming down. He, is doing an adequate job with rebounds and such, but he needs to get the scoring up to be a more consistent play. We're seeing Malik Monk. I believe it was Monk got a little bit more time. I think it was Dwayne Bacon that was dinged up a little bit. Let me see. Yeah, Bacon has played not played in the last two games after being the regular starter, so that frees up a little bit of time. And then I think you had mentioned, was it Cody Martin had himself a game last night? That was 3 steals carried him, 26 minutes. He had 7 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals in his 26 minutes, so he got a fantasy point per minute there. Nobody really exciting. I think we have some other better game environments here. Anything else you'd like to mention from the Hornets?
Nothing that stands out. I will mention that, and it's just kind of something to keep in mind as you're thinking about plays. James Borrego, the Charlotte coach, had mentioned the other day that PJ Washington's minutes have been down by design. He was playing 36 minutes a night to open the season, and now he's been down in that 28 to 30 minute range more often than not. He said that was intentional. He said that it was just trying not to wear him out early in the season. And the same goes for Cody Zeller, who we've seen the occasional 34-minute game, but he said that he's happy playing him around 28 minutes a night. He said that the goal is to have him play, all the games this year, or at least be healthy at the end of the season, which has been an issue for him in the past. So, you'll still get some spike games, for lack of a better word, where Zeller's just out there for 34 minutes, but more often than not, you're going to get those 28-minute games, which limit his upside a bit.
All right, let's transition here. Damn it! Chat thinks I'm on the wacky tobacco, as Josh likes to call it, the devil's lettuce, etc.
Been borrowing from Laffy.
Yeah, or borrowing Laffy's vapor. No, I actually have done that before, and yes, I did inhale quite deeply, but that was back when Adam was probably in diapers. So it's been a while since I've done that. You guys want to go for it? Go to town. I'm happy with my Dos Equis Amber and my Grey Goose vodka. But I've got my whole box of Refresh eye drops here. Get these at Costco. I had LASIK about 10 years ago, and I have developed a dry eye from that. I have very light sensitivity. So 2015 vision for a long time. It's 2020 now, but I can see like a son of a bitch at night. That's hard to do when other cars are coming towards you with lights on, which, oh wait, it's going to be every single one of the cars. But so that is something I've been working through. So that's I'm very sensitive to things in my eyes. And my mom is in town, and Adam knows this because we did the podcast late last night. So we have some flowers, and we're trying to make the house look nice for her to welcome her in from Washington State. So yes, that is one of the rare times flowers are in the house. Otherwise, flowers should stay outside where they can be enjoyed by bees and bugs and the deer in our neighborhood. All right, the game of games, Adam. We've got the Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Houston Rockets. We know that Russell Westbrook should be sitting out this back-to-back. We know Clint Capella is still in the concussion protocol. Daniel House Jr. is dealing with whatever dinged-up thing he has now. He's questionable, but he's missed the last 2 games himself. On the other side, we are likely to be without Andrew Wiggins. His grandmother passed away, so he and his family are up in Toronto right now. Now, this game is in Minnesota. So, a little closer than Houston to Toronto, but I suspect he won't be in the mix. tonight. Both these teams coming off a back-to-back here. Our operating goal of the day is going to be getting James Harden in as many lineups as we possibly can. There are 14 teams in action. We are going to get the value wherever we need it to make this happen. The question is, can we get the two Apex guys in this game, and how many others should we start to squeeze in? Adam, let's start off here. Well, you choose. Who would you like to speak towards first, the Rockets or the T-Wolves?
Start with Minnesota. So obviously we have to actually get that Wiggins news. It doesn't change a lot in terms of Towns is a phenomenal play either way. It's a fast-paced Houston team. It's a fast-paced Minnesota team. It should just be a really fast-paced game overall. Clint Capella is still out, so you're going to get Tyson Chandler and an undersized PJ Tucker and Isaiah Hartenstein trying to defend Towns. So he's a good play with or without Wiggins, but the offense will run through Towns more if Wiggins is out. Teague's a really good play regardless. His price tag actually dropped on DraftKings, but if Wiggins is out, again, you're just going to get the ball in Teague's hands more. You're going to get a higher usage rate. Robert Covington's a good value either way, but gets a bump if if Wiggins is out. The guys that do really, really depend on Wiggins are the Jarrett Culver, Josh Okogie, Jake Layman type guys who are going to get more minutes if Wiggins is out. We saw Jarrett Culver start and play 30 minutes last night. You got 27 minutes apiece off the bench from Okogie and Layman. Robert Covington played 27 minutes, dealt with some foul trouble early, but we're pretty consistently seeing 26 to 28 minutes when Wiggins is in. He, I think, would have played closer to 30 last night had Wiggins been out, or had the game been competitive, sorry. So I think that, the Culver, Okogie, Layman guys, you'll want to rotate through them as value if Wiggins is out. If Wiggins is in, they become much less appealing. But regardless, Towns, Teague, Covington, and then Wiggins, if he's in, are really good plays from the Minnesota side.
All right. A couple things I want to hit on. I was looking over here at the Rockets minutes to see what we could figure out. And I remembered somebody had asked a question about Pacers, Goga Bitadze, our thoughts on him. Turner's likely to come back. Bitadze missed a few games with a concussion. I suspect he'll continue to play in that 15 to 20 minute range. Not really exciting for me at this point. I think he's a better kind of a defender guy and just kind of fitting in where he needs to be. I prefer him to TJ Leaf, but he doesn't shoot nearly as much as TJ Leaf. From the Rockets last night, we saw Tucker go 40-minute. Tyson Chandler, that is 37-year-old Tyson Chandler, who is playing in his 19th season, went 25 minutes. Last year in 50 games between the Lakers and the Suns, he topped 20 minutes 15 times. He played more than 25 minutes, I want to say only once or twice, and it was like 26 and 30 were the two that he had gone over. So who knows what he's going to do in the back-to-back. Last night he took 2 shots. He was plus 24 in the game, so he was influencing it through defense while he was while he was on the court. But we'll have to see how many minutes he's going to play. We've mentioned that Westbrook is out. Ben McLemore drew the start. Had a phenomenal Ben McLemore game. 33 minutes. His shot was actually falling. 6 of 13 from the field. 4 of 11 from downtown. 21 points for him. Gary Clark's kind of in the picture. Who knows what is going to happen with Thabo Sefolosha. He's actually getting... How old do you think Thabo Sefolosha is?
29.
35.
Oh.
He's getting up there in age. Let's see. How old do you think PJ Tucker is?
34.
He is 34. You nailed that one. His birthday and Tabo's are 3 days apart. So there you go. And then you got Austin Rivers. We have, I keep wanting to say Clarence Clemens, but it's Chris Clemens there. He is not in the E Street Band playing saxophone for Bruce Springsteen. I think for me it's Harden. It's maybe one of the other starting guards, and PJ Tucker is a robot, so he can be out there for a lot of time. But it's really down to Harden at this point. I don't feel great about a lot of these other guys, Adam, because we just mentioned back-to-back, they're old and they played a bunch of minutes. What do you like outside of Harden?
So, I mean, just to kind of stay on Harden for a minute, because it's pretty insane the numbers you can expect from him. Like, he's played 1,948 minutes since the start of last season without any of Paul, Melo or Russell Westbrook on the floor. He's averaged 1.84 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 44.9% usage rate. He has a 48.2% assist percentage. So you're going to see people today being like, "Oh, Harden's popular. Like, I'm going to go somewhere else." It's not the Harden that it's not like the normal Harden. It's Harden that averages close to 2 points per minute. So just get him in as many lineups as you can, especially in a fast-paced game here. But beyond that, you get plenty of value from this team. PJ Tucker, 4,400 on DraftKings, going to be playing center with Capella out. You should get plenty of time from him at the 5. So that's more rebounding opportunities, a little bit higher usage rate, and that comes also just because Westbrook's not on the floor. Austin Rivers should get the start in Westbrook's place. He's only 3,700. You should get north of 30 minutes from him. So he's another great value option that should be popular, but also that is just in a good spot. Ben McLemore should see increased usage without Westbrook out there. I would rank them in that order, Harden, Tucker, Rivers, McLemore. But yeah, I think that this game in general, I mean, there's just going to be so much value and the two top expensive plays from the slate. Like it's going to be a really highly owned game, but I also think that it should be.
All right. Oh, this is beautiful because it's chat and it's me. So someone asked, quick, without looking, what is in Bruce Springsteen's pocket on the Born in the USA album cover? So that came out in 1984. Adam,
I've heard it.
You've heard of it?
I said I heard the song.
Yes. A lot of, I think, 6 top 10 radio hits on that one.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I have that CD like on my phone.
Have you seen the cover?
I'm sure I've seen it. I have no idea what the answer to the question is.
All right. So they're asking, it's a red ball cap. And the people in chat were saying, I always thought it was a bandana. The reason I remember it was a red ball cap is I'm like, who the hell puts a ball cap in their back pocket sticking out? I don't know. So that's how I remember that one. I thought it was weird as anything. I think it was more because he's got blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and the red ball cap symbolizing the red, white, and blue. But in any event, yeah, it was not a bandana. Dancing in the Dark. Does anybody remember which member of the Friends cast was a surprise appearance on stage being pulled out to dance with Bruce Springsteen? And that was scripted and choreographed. In any event, Adam, here back to the ne'er-do-wells, the non-James Harden category here. Doesn't feel great. We're going to need a little bit of news. Hartenstein maybe with picking up an extra minutes because he's not as old as everybody else is there. And that's not the best analysis, but it's what I've got at this point in time. Finish up this game.
Yeah, no, it's Harden, Tucker, Rivers, McLemore.
Right. Matthew Perry was not the Friends member that was called up to dance. It was Courtney Cox, well before anybody knew who she was. All right, and she was still painfully skinny. Our next game, Adam, let's get out of 1985, 84, 85. Let's go to New Orleans and Miami. This one's actually kind of an intriguing game. We have nobody massively priced, but we've got some decision points here and some guys we can kind of work in from the mid-tier. Brandon Ingram should be back after missing 2 games with his sore knee. Jimmy Butler, just 7,600 on DraftKings, gets you that shooting guard small forward eligibility, which has him eligible for 5 of the 8 positions on the multi-position eligibility. Bam Adebayo at 7,500, rather intriguing in this matchup because, hey, guess what? The Pellies don't have an intimidating front court. Drew Holiday's price has ticked up. He did quite nicely without Brandon Ingram, starting to find his groove, if you will. Remember how good he was last year without Davis, etc. on the court. He's finding his way, I guess, this year. But he's someone who's been pretty solid. Lonzo Ball upgraded to questionable. He's missed the last couple games. He's dealing with a groin injury. I don't know that he'll be in. And you've got an expensive or increasing price tag there on Derek Favors, who's coming off the old Barbara Walters 2020 game. Hat tip to one Dean Shavelson for coming up with that saying. Talk to me about the Pellies here, Adam.
A lot of obviously moving parts here with Ingram probable, with Ball questionable. If Ball's back, it makes it just an entire mess because Drew's priced up. Ball obviously just takes touches away from everyone. I think that Ingram is the most appealing price point. Him being back should make Holiday a little bit less productive. I still think that if Ball is out, Holiday has the ball in his hands a lot and should see an increase in assists. But Ingram will knock the usage down a little bit. Ingram, before he got hurt, was in that 7,700 to 8K range on DraftKings. Now he's 6,900. It's not the best matchup against Miami. They play at a reasonably fast pace, but they're a quality defensive team. And on this slate where I think there's a lot of good value and there's a lot of exceptionally good guys to pay up for, I don't think I end up in the mid-range a whole lot. But just looking at the salaries on this team, I think Ingram is the most favorably priced. I think Derek Favors is still a reasonable option, but now you're definitely, he's priced a lot closer to where he should be as well. I think this team for the most part is finally, after a couple of games of not having Ingram or Lonzo, they're priced correctly for guys being out, and then overpriced if everyone's in.
All right, we're getting some questions on Kelly Olynyk, actually, and your thoughts on him as we transition here to the Miami side of things.
Jimmy Butler really stands out. Right now, we actually have him as the highest projected owned guy on DraftKings. I think that'll change throughout the day, but the point being that he'll be popular and for good reason. He's only 7,600. You should get plenty of minutes. Justice Winslow's still out for this game. New Orleans is one of the fastest teams in the league. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And Butler just does everything when he's on the floor. So he stands out as a top option. Bam Adebayo is a pretty solid center option in the mid-range. He's preferable if you can get him at power forward, which I think you can on FanDuel. But at center, he's still fine. Obviously on DraftKings, you can still pair him with Towns. So it's a good spot for him. You should get 34 to 36 minutes. I think that, behind Butler, he's the best play for Miami.
All right. This one, a little higher over-under than I would have expected, which is why we like to look at these, because our biases can set in rather quickly. You have a 230 over-under here, between 229 and 230, depending on which of the odds sites that you like to take a gander at here. That is basically the second best total of the games on the slate. It's a bucket better than Portland at San Antonio, which we'll talk about, and it's 5 points less than that Minnesota-Houston game that we just discussed. So it's one of those where things have changed a little bit with the makeup of the teams. I'm just calling it up here. I think Miami's dipped a little bit. So Miami's 12th fastest in the league for pace this season, 105 possessions per 48. New Orleans is first, just shy of 110. Miami does have the third best defensive efficiency. They're one of three teams allowing less than 100 points per 100 possessions. They are at 98.4. New Orleans is basically the worst from that. They're third. The Wizards and Golden State allow more points per 100. Think about this. Golden State allows 113.5 points per 100 possessions. The Wizards are at 111.4, and then New Orleans in there at 10.6. And then we've also talked about Detroit and San Antonio. Their team makeup has changed dramatically. Detroit is fourth at 109.5, and San Antonio fifth at 109.2. So everything is on its ear these days, including with Memphis, Utah, etc., etc. One thing, since we've got 3 games to go here, I want to point out, if you guys have not yet signed up for Osmo, here's a neat little way you can do it. If you go to osmo.com, on the upper left of the little white header bar at the top, there'll be the far left says Osmo Plus. If you click on that, it will take you to the join page. Now, I do want to point this out because we have a lot of content. We've got a lot of different tools, etc. So we've come up with some different ways. We have the full access premium that gives you everything you want. If you want to get in on that, use the promo code NBA Strategy, all one word. You'll get 50% off your first month. That's probably the best package that we have out there, coming in with basically 2 free weeks if you use the promo code. But what you'll also see there is, if you click on that, we have packages for as low as $3.95 a week. So what we've done is we've built out some of our we call those the express packages. We've consolidated some of the information. So with those, I think you get projections. You don't get the ownership. You don't get a couple other things. But what Alex Osmo has done is he's gone in and he's created a different set of rankings, consolidating his his flat player rankings and grades, which is A through D grades, the projections, the ownership, etc., and puts that into its own grade. So if you're getting home from work, you got 15, 20 minutes to throw together a lineup, this is something that'll give you a fighting chance to be competitive, and you won't have to do all of the heavy lifting. And if you can only catch the last 15, 20 minutes of one of the shows, you can get in on any of the final breaking news, etc., but you can still get in and have some fun. And that's the whole point of why he created Osmo. Is he said, you know what, I know how much work I'm putting into all of this, and these are the tools that he uses on his own. The boom bust tool, he created that for all of the sports, and that's something that he uses. The top stacks tool, which is kind of an offset of the boom bust when we get into NBA here, because it's hard to have an NBA stack. But the top stacks tools, those are all his. Those are all coming out of his models. It's the same information that he's using. But what he wanted to do is do the heavy lifting for everybody else. So it's not like you still have to log into your account and click which players you want, or how choose the guys that you want to roll with each night. But what we're doing is we're saving you a couple hours of raw data analysis, smashing, digging through things, and chasing stuff down. So you can get that for as little as $3.95 a week. So something worth checking out there. Adam, 3 more games to go. We've got Portland at San Antonio and Toronto at Dallas. Let's hit that Portland at San Antonio one first, and then we have the lonely little outpost game, which is going to be a fun one with Atlanta and the Clippers. That is the lone. I think that's a 10:30 game tonight. But talking about Portland and San Antonio, the interesting thing is we know DeJounte Murray is going to be out, not playing on back-to-backs this season after recovering from a year off with ACL surgery. So that means Derek White is going to be rather popular. If you look at the cash building blocks article, I have listed him as a risky value. Now here's why. He has played get over to it. Pardon me, I've listed him as good value. I'm sorry, it was Aaron Holiday that was risky value. So here's why I've got him as good value, and at first I thought I was going to call him risky value. So he has only going to be competing with Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills for minutes. Okay, he's better than those guys. We saw him have some really good moments towards the end of last year, but he's only top 25 fantasy points once this season. Well, it's because there's a lot of guys in there, and Pop's doing some mixing and matching here. I think we're going to see him in the 26 to 28 minute range tonight. I think he has a tick or two of upside. Wouldn't shock me if he got to 30. It's not a guarantee because we've seen enough of these games, but it wouldn't shock me if he got to 30 minutes. And he is one of those guys that I think lines up quite nicely. He is 4,500 on DraftKings, so I really like that price. On FanDuel, he's 4,500, and Yahoo, he's 12. The Yahoo price is phenomenal as well. DraftKings, this is our early ownership run. He's 34% on DraftKings, 41% on FanDuel, 54% there on Yahoo. I think that this is a good spot for him, and I would prefer to go to him even on DraftKings, where he is about the same price as Aaron Holiday. What do you like here from, let's start off with the Spurs.
Yeah, so I think that everything you said about White is correct. I've seen him on some sites projected for like 32 minutes. He certainly could get there. I don't think that's the medium projection. The only game he started so far this year was November 1st against Golden State. He played 26 minutes. He had some fouls in that game, but they didn't affect his minutes all that much, I don't think. So I'll probably go with like a 28-minute projection. There's room for him to play a little bit more, room for him to play a little bit less. Last year, he averaged 0.87 DraftKings points per minute, which is pretty solid production. It's just a good value play. It's not one of those value plays where you look at it and you're just like, yeah, he probably goes for like 40 points today. But he's clearly underpriced for the increased minutes he can get with Murray out. So just a good value at that price point. Not the most appealing matchup, not the worst matchup. Portland this season has been the 11th least efficient defense. They don't play at a particularly fast pace, but they're not super slow either. Just a pretty neutral spot for White, and I think that it's a pretty good option. Like if Brogdon gets ruled out, I would rather have $3,700 McConnell than $4,500 White if I could only roster one. But there's nothing wrong, obviously, with just rostering both of them.
All right. The other thing, White has been above 25 fantasy points just 3 times this season. However, all 3 of those games were ones in which DeJounte Murray played alongside him. So that's not too bad. We had a
The
little.
natural, if you're playing large field tournaments and looking for like a leverage pivot to White, naturally it's going to be Patty Mills at 3,600. He's basically going to be White's backup and maybe play a couple long minutes alongside of him. But if White were to get in foul trouble or just not play well or something like that, Patty Mills would be the first one to pick up more minutes.
Yeah, good one there. We talked a little bit on last night's early bird about LaMarcus Aldridge. Slowing down, priced appropriately, particularly on DK, as you said. The upside, not really attaining it. I had said if anybody mentions revenge, going to put a little banhammer on or a timeout on you. This will be I forget now, 15th or 16th time he's played his former squad. That ship has sailed a long time ago, but he is still reasonably priced in especially for this late 3-game slate. I think very much in play. I'm not as big of a fan of him on the main slate. We have DeMar DeRozan, who doesn't like to get double D's in their life on Saturday. What else do you want to do here with San Antonio?
I think that the salary on Aldridge is fine. I think it's pretty correctly priced for his production this season. He's losing rebounds to Trey Lyles. Murray being out could give him a little bit of an uptick in usage, but we haven't really seen all that much of an impact yet this year. I think from a median standpoint, it's pretty correct. Obviously, he still has some upside there, but the thing that stands out is right now we have him on DraftKings projected to be the 4th highest owned player behind Butler, White, and Randall. To me, that's just too high. He's a perfectly fine option, but I don't think he'll end up being a huge priority for me tonight.
All right, gotta jump in.
He's played so far this season. He's played 162 minutes with DeMar DeRozan on the floor and with DeJounte Murray on the bench. He's averaged 1.12 fantasy points per minute. He has a 23.1% usage rate. Rebounding percentage is at 11.1%. So, if you're going to get 34 minutes and get 1.12 points per minute, that's a pretty solid projection for 6,600. But it's not like it's a screaming value either.
All right, Giggity Gaming says so. Revenge game. Now, as my dad used to say, young man, you are skating on thin ice. I'm sorry, Giggity Gaming made me laugh. So you survived the timeout hammer there. Ebrock says the Awesemo guys are awesome. It's right there in the title, Awesemo. There you go. Good pointing out. It was Cat's birthday last night, so was he out partying? Is he going to bomb after his birthday? Well, he's 24. It's not his 21st birthday.
Or 25th. That's when it all went downhill for me.
Okay, so we're solid there. He should be okay. But they're saying he plays 7 to 10 minutes less on back-to-backs. Again, he played 33 minutes last night. This is going to be one where I see similar, if not more, minutes tonight for this one. They sat him out of the last 5 minutes last night because the game was, well, as Adam and I were talking pre-show, you didn't hear us. It was like Adam said, they were only down 10. This is 2 teams that don't play defense, and they're sprinting up and down the court. How did they take him out? Well, because why not, instead of having a winnable game against the Wizards, let's save ourselves for Houston. For those of you...
if you're going to use stats like that, don't do it from one season. He's played 1 back-to-back this year. He played 41 and then 30 minutes. You shouldn't be drawing any conclusions from that.
Oh, here's the other one you shouldn't be drawing conclusions with. The old Capella, that Towns smashes Capella. That was true 3 seasons ago, 2 seasons ago. The last 4 times they've squared off, Towns has basically gotten his average points, fantasy points per game. He hasn't topped 50.
Capella's also not playing.
And Capella's out with a concussion. So again, going to the let's focus, keep our eye on the ball of what's going on here. So let's see. Oh, Giggity said you get another shout out here. $2 says mission accomplished. You guys rock. He survived the band hammer. Emac eats Mountain Dew. I usually have Mountain Dew for breakfast, so I guess that's fair. Emac and cheese, also a tasty dish. All right, Adam, now that we've taken us off the rails, we've got 21 minutes here until the NBA DFS strategy show with Chris Randone and Sal Vitri kicks off. You do have On the Contrary. I believe that's at 2 o'clock today. I'll double check that time, but that's going to be Chris Baggs, Alex Baker, and special guest. And then, of course, live before lock tonight at least 6. We may go at 5:45. I'm reaching out to Eddie to find out, but we'll take you down the home stretch with those last 7 games. I will be keeping Eddie on track. We are most likely not going to go game by game tonight, so listen to this if you want to hear the game by game, but we're going to hit on all the breaking news and high notes to make sure that we have time for questions at the end of that one. So that will be at least at 6 o'clock, and it might be at 5:45 Eastern. I'll have that posted around lunchtime. I should hear back from him. Anything else? Oh, I guess we should go to the Portland side here. Carmelo Anthony will not be playing until Tuesday at the earliest, but the cry for help was sent out, Adam. Portland is in dire straits if they are turning to Carmelo Anthony, but it does seem like they need to. So sad that Yusuf Nurkic is out, because God, this would have been an exciting season to watch him play. Hassan Whiteside doing an admirable effort. Lillard doing Lillard things, McCollum doing McCollum things, but it's really those three guys, and the rest has been quite a disappointment. Who knew they were going to miss Al-Farouq Aminu so much? I mean, who could have stopped Al-Farouq Aminu last night other than Al-Farouq Aminu? What do you want to do with the Trailblazers? Nothing and like it.
I mean, like Lillard is a good play. He's really cheap. He's playing 38 plus minutes. As you mentioned earlier, San Antonio has actually been one of the least efficient defenses in the league this year, and not having DeJounte Murray out there is going to hurt that too. So I think Lillard is easily the best play from Portland. The problem that you start to run into is he's similarly priced to Trae Young. He's not that much less expensive than Luka Doncic. And also, if you're getting two of Towns, Giannis, Harden in your lineup, it's really hard to get a third guy in there like Lillard. So I think that Lillard is a really good play here if you can get to him. His ownership probably shouldn't be that high. Right now we have it at about 21% on DraftKings. I think that probably comes down as Harden goes up. So I think that he's a good play. I think that secondary options are also Whiteside and McCollum at very, very reasonable price tags. The problems that I think you just kind of run into are, Whiteside probably plays around 30 minutes, which is good, but you have Julius Randle for like $100 more on DraftKings, who is probably going to play 4 to 6 minutes more. You have Bam, who's going to play more minutes if you can find that little bit of extra salary. You have Towns, obviously, at the position on FanDuel, which makes it really, really difficult. So I think that Lillard, Whiteside, McCollum are all solid options. It's just, how much can you actually get to in terms of roster construction? Beyond that, I don't really want to get to the value from Portland, because you've seen Rodney Hood's price tag come up. He's up to 4,600. And Anthony Simons is at 4,500. He closed the last game, which is nice, but it's just really, really difficult for these guys to pay off mid 4K salaries when they're playing so many minutes alongside Lillard and Whiteside, or Lillard and McCollum, sorry, especially if they're closing. People in Premium Slack asked about Nasir Little. If he starts again, he's basically the minimum price tag, which is nice, but the problem you run into there is that he's probably not going to play in the fourth quarter. You're probably going to see a closing lineup again of Whiteside, McCollum, Hood, Simons, and Lillard, or maybe Bazemore over Simons. But it's pretty unlikely that Nasir Little's in the closing lineup, so that really limits his upside. I think it's pretty much just the main three guys from Portland for me.
Yeah, and I'm taking it a step further and just saying it's the late slate at this point in time. I don't anticipate getting a bunch of these guys on my main slate lineups. Let's see here. Oh, I almost skipped Toronto and Dallas there, so we'll go back to them. I'm so excited to talk about Atlanta and the Clippers. Legitimately excited to talk about that one. Let's focus here on Toronto and Dallas. I don't know anybody. Wait, I know one person that has Luka Doncic socks. That would be Adam Scherer. He actually sent me a picture of them, and it is Luka Doncic on his socks with a little autograph as well. Have you worn the socks yet?
Have I taken the socks off yet? Would have been better.
Are the socks walking down and getting delivery food for you so you can stay and watch the game? There's the better question. How are the socks treating you?
Good. The first game that I wore them, I had them on. Luka had like 25 points in the first quarter. I took a shower, came out, so obviously I wasn't wearing my socks. And he had scored 1 point the entire second quarter, so now they just don't come off.
There we are. I believe he is leading the league in triple-doubles this season, and also leading the league in triple-doubles since you have those socks. All kidding aside, he is a phenomenal play here going against Toronto. Toronto, very, very thin. They've got some guys playing some absolutely monster minutes. They lost Kyle Lowry, and he was playing like the fourth or fifth most minutes in the league. Last time I looked, it's Fred Van Vliet is like third. Siakam is fourth or fifth. Those guys are going to play 40 minutes. We'll talk about them in a second. Let's focus here on Dallas. So you've got Luka. You have Kristaps Porzingis, reasonably priced. This is a good matchup for him. Dwight Powell, I like better than Maximilian Kleber. But the guy that's disappearing for me at this point is Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, he's 3,500, so I was just curious if you had any thoughts on him, Adam. He's been playing in the mid-20s for minutes, and I thought he was going to be one of my value guys tonight. He's starting this season, but he's just not getting the usage, not doing a lot. In his last 5 starts, 11, this is his usage, 11%, 18%, 18%, 8%, 8.5%. That's just not exciting.
Yeah, so I was answering questions in Slack, but were you talking about Dwight Powell with that usage?
No, that was DFS Dorian Finney-Smith.
Because Powell's has been really low too.
Okay. I was saying I liked Powell more than Kleber.
Yeah, I mean, I like whichever starts more. Last game, Powell was back in the starting lineup. Maxey only played 18 minutes. Maxey's salary came down, though, so he would be a guy that there's a lot of ways for him to actually be a good play here. Obviously, it's not great if he only plays 18 minutes, but we've seen plenty of them playing Maxey alongside Powell at times. So, maybe a guy that you can get at low ownership in tournaments that could come through, sort of like a Mo Wagner, except for like 30 instead of 55. But I think the priorities here are obviously Luka and Porzingis. Luka will be tough to get to just for the same reasons that Dame Lillard was. But, if you're going with a lineup where you have like one of Harden, Giannis, Towns instead of two, it opens the door for you to get to Luka, who obviously has a monster ceiling. He's just less likely to get to it than Towns in his spot or Harden or Giannis, but he's also a little bit cheaper than Harden and Giannis. So I think a good play, especially in tournaments where his ownership should be relatively low. I would expect he right now on DraftKings projected for like 15% ownership, which seems reasonable. Porzingis' price tag is still really, really affordable. Only 7K on DraftKings. He should play 32 to 34 minutes in a competitive game. Rebounding numbers aren't great. Assist numbers aren't great, but still second highest usage rate on the team behind Luka. They're the only 2 players on the team with a usage rate over 20%. So I think that he is a pretty decent option.
All right. Question in chat. That on the other side, what are you projecting Siakam and Fred Van Vliet for? Are you putting him in for 40 minutes? It's hard. I don't see us being able to put him in for more. I think they're going to play like 41, 2 or 3, assuming no foul trouble, they're not exhausted, etc. But it just feels silly projecting them more than that because you still want a little upside in your projections, I think.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for most guys, I don't go over 38. For them, I'll go to 40. But yeah, going above that, it's kind of just there's no need for it. With OG being back, maybe Siakam loses a couple of minutes, but I still think it's pretty likely he just plays like 40 minutes and doesn't even go to the bench in the second half. So yeah, I'm fine giving both those guys around 40.
All right, dropping it in the chat. This is the link to my pinned tweet. That's to get into the Fred Van Elite contest. How you get into that is you join the DraftKings Osmo League. And then from there, you'll have access to the Fred Van Vliet contests when I post them. I think I forget what it is. We've been away 5 or 6, 7 people have won the league with an Osmo avatar, and they are all now enjoying their 30 free days of Osmo premium content. You got to have that avatar and win the league to win. Just $1 to enter. 75 teams must fill to run. It's paid out directly by DraftKings, so it's their payout structure for a 75-man league. Top 15 paid out. Just reach out to me if you were the winner of those contests and you have the Osmo avatar, and I will get you the 30 free days of Osmo premium content. There's I think about 50 people in that contest now. I haven't been tweeting these out as much because if I drop them in the link, and if I drop it in the link in the show tonight when I'm on with Eddie, last time I think we filled our final 15 spots in 2.5 minutes. So if you want to get in this, jump in now, because as soon as I drop that link on the show tonight, it's going to be completely full. So outside of Van Vliet and Siakam, and if Anobi's back from the forget what the eye abrasion, he got poked in the eye. I'm a little nervous about Chris Boucher at this point, so I'm not really as excited about him. I'm a guy that likes Norman Powell, but even after we discussed it last night, I'm less likely to play him on the main slate. Again, he's perfectly fine on the late slate. I'm really losing interest out of kind of the current big three, counting Anobi, for Toronto. I potentially see Gasol maybe getting less minutes with the return of Anobi, because I think Siakam's the one that's going to go to the 5, or they just will kind of play centerless at that point. How are you feeling about the secondary plays here for the Raptors?
I'm not going to Boucher or Hollis Jefferson with OG back.
Okay. Thank you. Hollis Jefferson was the other guy.
Yeah, just really tough to see their minutes being there. Terrence Davis also played 30 minutes last game, but I don't anticipate that happening again. Norman Powell's minutes have been all over the place. He lost minutes to Terrence Davis last game. He has the potential to play mid-30s, but he also could just give you like 28. I think he's a reasonable guy to be mixing into some tournaments, but he's not a guy that I'll have tons of. I would rather go to Derek White, potentially TJ McConnell, some other guys than Powell, because even when he does play, he's not the highest upside guy. He's going to be a sub 20% usage rate guy, and you're kind of just hoping that he shoots really well and gets hot and gets a couple extra shots. So I think that Siakam and Van Vliet are definitely the priorities from Toronto, and then it basically falls off of a cliff.
All right, one game to go. We got 9 minutes, and then at 11 o'clock, it'll be on a separate channel, so it's not going to interrupt our feed, but we'll get a little bit of this housekeeping out of the way real quick. But you got the DFS NFL Strategy Show with Chris Rendon and Sal Vitri at 3 o'clock today. 3 o'clock Eastern. You get On the Contrary. That's going to be Chris Spags, Alex Baker, and it's TJ Hernandez this week. I'm actually excited to see TJ Hernandez. For those of you who are not aware, he's on Twitter, TJ Hernandez, but he has the Family Guy, Stewie, the little kid whose head's shaped like a football. That's his avatar. He also is the main DFS director at 4 for 4 from their football side. So definitely tune in and check that out. That should be a really good show. You're going to get NHL show today. We have it's a hockey night in Canada. So we've got a 4-game slate at 4 o'clock, and I think it's a 6 or 7 game slate at 7 o'clock. So hockey all day today, but you'll get a show there from Jake Hari. We, of course, have projections, which have been hooking me up. If you've got the premium content, play some hockey. Look at the projections. Look at Alex's line rankings, and make a lineup or two. You should not be disappointed. We also have some fantastic guys in Slack that also contribute to the daily hockey article. So check that stuff out. And then live before lock tonight, we've got 7-game main slate that we're talking about now, but that will be featuring Fast Eddie Fair. Adam, our final game of the docket, we have Atlanta at the Clippers. I'm very, very, very excited for this one. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Kawhi Leonard yet. That's going to be the linchpin for all of this. He has a sore knee. So if he's in, that is going to mute our thrill for probably Lou Williams, etc. I think, is Pat Bev out? Pat Bev is Patrick Beverley questionable with the calf injury. That could have some implications as well. Ideally, he's out. And then we know that Paul George is going to be in for this one. On the Atlanta side, you have Vince Carter, who's not with the team for personal reasons, and then I'm blanking. I forget they have somebody else that's been hurt for most of the Evan Turner. He's been hurt for most of the year. He's questionable at the moment, but that's really not going to move the needle. What I do like, Trae Young, going to be awesome. Much better if we don't have Kawhi playing defense on him. We have Paul George. We'll let you talk about your projected minutes for him. Jabari Parker could get some time at center going against Montrezl Harrell. That'll be awesome. You've got Bembry, Hunter, Len, Reddish, garbage guys, but they're cheap. Set rules, don't play more than 2 of them on any team. Those guys are viable options. And then, oh yes, Lou Williams. How can we forget Adam Revenge? This is one of the 9 teams he has played for. So there you go. Talk about Paul George. Let's assume Kawhi. What do you think is up with Kawhi? So he played 41 minutes in the last game as a sore knee. Last year he played no back-to-backs. He played 4 times of 40 minutes or more. I just went and looked at his game logs. So I just seeing what we could infer from that one. Do you think he's in or out?
I think he's in. I think the Clippers are just playing games because they got fined for the last time that they sat Kawhi for rest, and they didn't say the right things. So that's my best guess, is that they're just playing games with Beverly and Williams now, listing them questionable the next day after they both had clearly scheduled rest days. I very easily could be wrong on that, but that's kind of my assumption. So I'm assuming they're in until I hear otherwise. And if that's the case, it makes this team a mess because we haven't seen a game yet with Kawhi. Yeah, we haven't seen a game yet with Kawhi and George on the floor. So we don't know exactly how the rotation will go. There's a chance that they don't stagger Kawhi and George, which would keep the Lou Williams and Harrell pick and roll with the second unit intact. But there, I think, is a better chance that they do stagger Kawhi and George, so you don't have the ball in Williams' hands quite as more, which would also have a negative impact on Harrell. It's just kind of a wait and see if Kawhi is in. I still think you could take a shot on a $7,900 Paul George. He only played 24 minutes last game, but he was also in foul trouble. I don't think that, looking at Popcorn Machine, I think he lost at least like 4 minutes to foul trouble. I don't think that it was an intended, he's only playing 24 minutes. I think that it really was what they said before the game, that he's restricted, as in if he is tired, he'll come out. So I'm not really, I don't think he gets 36 minutes, but I'm fine going back to like 30 minutes, which even if you were to take his rates from last year with Russell Westbrook on the floor and basically say that Kawhi in this case is Westbrook, at 7,900, he'd still be a pretty solid option. But it just becomes, everything becomes a lot more unclear if Kawhi is in.
All right, now to the Houston side. If Kawhi's playing, does that dampen your expectations for Trae Young at all?
Not really. I mean, it makes it, I guess, less likely he comes through, but he's still going to have the highest usage rate on the team. He's still going to get tons of assists. He's still going to play tons of minutes. I just, with how fast NBA teams play now, even the slower teams, playing so much faster than they did in the past, and Trae Young's involvement in the offense, I'm just not that concerned with individual defenders or even teams defensively. Obviously I would rather he be facing the Timberwolves or the Wizards or something, but it's just not enough to make me not roster someone because like Kawhi is in or out.
Jabari Parker's somebody I definitely have my eye on. He has started the last, 6 games. Looks like he's playing pretty solid 32 to 34 minutes in there, basically averaging a 22 and let's call it 8 points and rebounds, chipping in a little there with assists. Multiple assists in 3 of those 6 multiple steals in 3 of those 6 starts. And he's getting a lot of shots off. 15, 18, 23, 18 in his last 4. I really like to see that. Don't let the increased price get you off him. I think he's a viable option. Alex Len, as long as he can sort of stay out of foul trouble and at least remains somewhat interested in this game, has the ability to put up 1.1, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. He could also give us 11 fantasy. So your mileage may vary. Wrap up us here with the Hawks.
Yes, I mean, you mentioned Parker. I think that he's okay. The problem is just that I prefer Porzingis at the same price point. I prefer Julius Randle for less. So, if you're getting to that price range of power forward, it's just still tough for me to prioritize him. As far as the value guys, obviously Bembry was actually having a pretty decent game last game, and then he got ejected in the third quarter. I think that you get around 30 minutes from him. He's an okay value, especially because he probably won't be that popular. DeAndre Hunter's playing big minutes, but his price tag has come up. Cam Reddish is especially appealing on FanDuel, where he's 3,500, so he's even less expensive there than he is on DraftKings. He's okay on DraftKings too, but pretty unlikely that he has a big game. Alex Len's the really interesting one because we've seen 2 good games in a row from him, but he still only played 22 minutes 2 games ago. Last game he played 25 minutes against Phoenix. Actually, like 26 minutes against Phoenix. But Damian Jones was in foul trouble in that game too. He picked up 3 fouls in his second quarter stint, which gave Len an additional 3.5 minutes of run. And then he picked up his 4th foul 41 seconds into the third quarter. So Len subbed back in, played 8 minutes in the third. That obviously is in the range of outcomes for Len, but I still think it's more likely you get something like 22 minutes. If he's going to get no ownership, then it's still a guy that you can take a shot on, but I would still rather go to like Mitchell Robinson at the same price point. if people are going to game log chase and roster Len, even with the salary increasing, then I become really uninterested.
All right. That is going to wrap it up for us. Again, I've gone over all the content that we got on tap today, but make sure if you're going to only do one of those, listen to that On the Contrary at 3 o'clock with TJ Hernandez as the featured guest with Alex Baker and Chris Spags. With that, gamers, we're just going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam on Twitter. Adam is just 300 followers behind me. Get him to 11,000 before me. It'll be fun. Follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can find me at EMACDFS. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.